It is almost 2025, my friends. It's probably cold where you're watching this right now. You're probably sitting on the couch wondering what to plant, thumbing through the seed catalogs that are stacked up on your coffee table, just saying, what do I plant? What could I possibly plant next year? Well, that's exactly what we did here at the Epic Gardening headquarters. So in today's video, Jacques, myself, Shannie, and Meg are going to show you the things that we're the most excited to plant next year. If you ever wondered why birds are not visiting your garden, it might just be that you aren't planting the right things for them, but sometimes they need a lot more than a simple little seedling, which is why my pick is the Hummingbird Haven seed mix. This is something really fun that we cooked up this season. It is a seed shaker. So it's a bulk little tube that you can shake all these seeds out. And all these ones, there's 18 of them in here, were picked for hummingbird attracting qualities like bright colors or sort of tubular elongated flower structures, annuals, biennials, perennials. There's nasturtium in here, of course, that has that sort of long tubular base to that flower before it hits the stem. And then coral bells, there's even flowering tobacco in here. But to me, the most fun part of this, because I'm really getting into wildflowers and flowers in general, is the shaking ability. I will sow a little seed for you here right now. This is my artichoke / annual flower patch. And all you really do is till some soil up or scrape a little bit of soil loose so it's nice and workable. And then you just come in and literally just shake it out all over, maybe throw some compost on top, and then it'll sow itself and you're good to go. And I'll show you what it looks like in the back. Last season, Jacques and I carved out a bit of a smile patch here in the backyard, kind of lining where the start of the backyard garden forms. And we sprinkled out a self-made mix, and this is what happened. So we figured, why not create a bunch of different mixes that are easy to sow and accomplish a particular goal? And for me this year, that's more birds in the garden.
Nothing gets me more excited when I'm thinking about my garden than all the future stuff I plan to eat in the summertime. And one of the things I look forward to most is the pepper plant. Now right here I have one of my overwintered pepper plants, but the problem with this one is that it's a spicy pepper. This year I plan on expanding into way more sweet peppers, but also peppers that I could make things out of. That is why I'm going to be growing the sweet banana pepper, because I love pickled peppers on sandwiches. In fact, I ate so many sandwiches with pickled peppers this year that I think it would actually be beneficial to my pocketbook if I just made my own. So that is one that for sure I'm adding into the rotation. The last two are actually more unique. They are both different types of paprika peppers. Now, one of them I could pronounce, it's called Alma. The other one, I'm not so sure if I could say it's Kasai. Anyway, it's Hungarian, not Bulgarian, which is what I am. And the cool thing about these is that they are thick-walled, sweet pepper plants that are known for making delicious paprika. And if you didn't know, paprika is just dried up bell pepper, but if you get the specific kind, you'll get even more flavor. Cannot wait to grow these this year.
In 2025, we're ditching all of our old sponges and we are going to grow our own. Yes, this is a sponge that you can grow in your backyard. It's called the Loofah gourd, and it's a type of gourd that when it's fully mature and allowed to completely dry out, the inside flesh turns into an all-natural sponge. It's one of the coolest things that you could grow ever. Loofah are extremely vigorous binding plants, so you need like the sturdiest trellis that you have in your garden for them. A cattle panel trellis works wonders. One plant this year, just one plant gave me 32 loofah. That's a lot of loofah. So they are extremely prolific. I only grow one plant every year now because my first year of gardening, I think I grew 3 and I was like overwhelmed with loofah. So now I just stick to one. So just keep that in mind. Loofahs are actually edible. So they're not just a sponge. You can eat them. And they're seen a lot in Filipino and Indian cuisine and curries and things. If you're going to eat them, you want to harvest them when they're really small and they're young and they're tender and they're still green, because as they mature, as they age, that's when the flesh starts to kind of turn spongy like this. So they'll go yellow first and then they'll turn brown. And when they're brown and they're really crunchy, that's when you know that they're ready to harvest. Although you can harvest them when they're green and you can allow them to dry out somewhere else. Like we had our first frost coming, I had to get all the loofahs off the trellis. And so I have a bunch of green ones that are currently drying out in my greenhouse right now. So once your loofahs are dry, you're gonna want to peel off the outer skin, and this is what you're left with. And you can shake out the seeds that are inside. I already shaked some of these seeds out, but you can kind of still hear some stragglers in there. But you want to get your seeds out. You want to save those for next year, replant them next year. They'll be the best plants ever. And then you can choose what you want to do with the sponge. Usually people will just cut it kind of into thirds, and you can use them in the kitchen as a dish sponge, or you can use them in the shower as a shower sponge. So honestly, loofah is just way too cool for you to pass up growing in 2025.
The 2025 gardening season is upon us, and I couldn't be more excited. This is a big special year because I have got multiple gardens going at once. I've got my raised beds, my birdie beds filled with really high quality growing mix. I've got my in-ground field plantings that's going to be in native soil, and I've got my food forest. So I have multiple locations that I'm going to be growing. I've got lots of new crops to experiment with and tons of extra space. So I'm beyond excited. The first crop on my must-grow list is the naked seeded pumpkin. This specific variety is called Naked Bear. It is a hybrid, it's an F1 hybrid. And I chose a hybrid because I have really high pest and disease pressure here in my Central Florida location. So I really need a pumpkin that can withstand lots and lots of diseases and pests. This one stood up great to my conditions and made tons of seeds. Now, a pepita, or a naked seeded pumpkin, is a variety that actually, when you crack it open, you'll find the seeds do not have that hard white outer seed cover. Last season, I didn't even have to process these to eat them. I actually just cut them open and ate them right out of the shell. They were delicious, but if you wanted to toast them in oil with a little bit of salt, they're absolutely out of this world. You can find heirloom varieties of the naked seeded pumpkin. This is a hybrid, but we also have the Lady Godiva or the Kakai pumpkin. Those are heirloom naked seeded pumpkins, and they still have that quality where they make lots and lots of seeds, and the seeds don't have that tough outer shell.
So as we know, squash produces like crazy. By the end of the season, you're just trying to give it away. But the one that I've selected is the mashed potatoes acorn squash. I grew up eating acorn squash. You throw a little butter in there, you throw a little brown sugar. It's an absolutely delicious meal. And that's a kid who didn't like to eat his vegetables when I was younger. But this one, it is a white skin, white flesh acorn squash that produces about 3 to 5 squash per plant. But for you compact space gardeners, it only gets to about 48 inches on the vine length. So you could put that in a container, you could let it go into a garden and sprawl, but it wouldn't really sprawl that far because squash can sometimes absolutely take over a garden. And then Lee on our team, who helps us pick our new varieties every year, mentioned that what she'll do is scoop out the flesh and actually make mashed squash instead of mashed potatoes and serve it back in the skin. So I'm so excited about it. I think it's such a cool looking squash, and we'll have to see how it performs this year.
This year I plan on growing way more of something that I grew for the very first time last year. It was actually grown right here in this bed next to me, and that thing was wheat. Now this is the wheat right here they harvested from that bed. It was so much fun to see the wheat growing, dancing in the wind. But when I ate that fresh focaccia made from my very own homegrown wheat, it was like I was teleported to another plane because that's how good it was. Now for me, I like to grow a hard spring wheat, which is exactly what I have here. Hard wheats are the ones that are better for things like bread, focaccia, and that is what I like to actually make the most of. So I'm not messing around with winter wheat because here in San Diego, we don't really have a winter. But if you do have a winter, I do encourage you to try it because it could survive very low temperatures without any problem whatsoever. And I'm also adding one new grain this year, and that is a hull-less oat. Now, usually oats are very difficult to grow and process because they have a hull that you have to remove, but a hull-less oat makes that a lot easier. So I'm going to be experimenting with this new grain, and maybe every year I'll add an extra grain, and maybe you should as well.
This crop grows like a weed, smells amazing, can be used for both culinary and medicinal purposes, and it's a great companion plant and pollinator plant. Lemongrass is definitely a plant that you want on your radar for 2025. The thing I love most about growing lemongrass is just how easy it is to grow. Like the name implies, it's literally a grass that smells and tastes just like lemon. So it's used a lot in cuisines around the world, most notably I think Vietnamese and Thai cuisines. It's used to enhance the flavor of meats and soups and stews. It's kind of used as like an aromatic herb in those cuisines, and it's just delicious. And then medicinally, it's used as a tea, and it's been known to help aid digestion. So all around, it's just a really good herb to have in the kitchen. Lemongrass is not a cold tolerant plant. It's a tropical plant. It loves warmer weather. So if you live in a warmer climate, you can grow it as a perennial or sometimes all year round if you want. If you live in a colder climate, you're going to have to either bring it inside in the winter, or what I like to do is I like to harvest all of my lemongrass in the fall, and I'll dehydrate the leaves for tea, and then I'll freeze the stalks to throw in soups over the winter. And then I will just take a couple of propagations. So to get a propagation, you're gonna cut a stalk, and you wanna make sure that you leave a little bit of roots at the bottom of the stalk. And then you're just going to sit it in a shallow kind of cup or bowl of water. Don't submerge the whole thing in water, just kind of up to here, just so that it can grow those roots. And then this will be ready to replant in the spring. And I have a whole new lemongrass plant. It's super easy. If you don't already have a lemongrass, you don't have one propagating, my advice to you is to buy an established plant in the spring. I would not worry about starting it from seed. It can be really, really tricky. If you're up for a challenge, go for it. If you're a brand new gardener and you just want to save yourself the headache, go with an established plant and you can thank me later. But growing lemongrass is just such a joy. So I think you're definitely going to want to put that one on your list for 2025.
My next pick is many picks rolled into one, and it's one that I want to say I've overlooked for a couple seasons now, considering it a little bit boring or a little bit blasé. A decade into growing my own food, sometimes you can get a little sick of plants, but this year I'm coming back with a vengeance with a whole suite of lettuce. This year, I'm committing to growing every single variety of lettuce that we offer, as well as many other seed companies offer, to see which lettuce I like the best. We're gonna grow at least 30 different varieties. I'll put a bunch of them right up here so you can get some inspiration, because the world of lettuce actually runs quite deep. There's a lot of new varieties that come out every year, but there's also just a lot of different types that are better adapted for certain situations. Like in my area, in summer, lettuce does not really exist. It's too hot for it, but there's even some varieties that can perform better in heat. So for me, I still eat salads. I still like to eat them, and I want a variety of different lettuces coming out of the garden. So I'm gonna grow 30 of them this year and report back to you in a future video which ones did the best.
In my opinion, no garden is complete without some flowers, and yes, that does include your vegetable garden at home. Now, there are so many different types of beautiful flowers, so many colors, so many reasons to grow them, and this year I'm actually expanding into one of my favorites, which is the straw flower with the king-size silvery rose. This is a almost pink-white style straw flower. I traditionally grow these more reddish, yellow, orange ones, which I absolutely love, but this color right here is speaking to me for some reason. I think it's gonna pop really nicely in the garden. Butterflies absolutely seem to love the straw flowers as well. And now next to me over here is the blanket flower. And this is one that I've had perennially growing here for a few years now, and it's always covered in pollinators no matter what. But probably the best flower I've ever grown for pollinators is Lacy Facilia. This is actually a cover crop technically, because it does also fix nitrogen in your soil. The cool thing about this flower in particular is that it blooms over a very long period. Each one of the flowers slowly unfurls almost like a finger opening up, and as it does, a new bloom appears and it is covered in bees. So definitely give this one a try, and if you've never grown straw flowers, I highly encourage them as well. They're not only really beautiful, but they're really fun to play with as well.
Next up on the 2025 to grow list is the Thunder Mountain Longhorn Pepper. This is purported to be the world's longest cayenne pepper, or at least it has the genetic potential to be the world's longest. My husband grew just one of these plants as a trial in his nursery, and he did get impressively long peppers, and they're super cute. Now these are about medium on the heat scale for a cayenne pepper, which is excellent for the kind of cooking I do. I do a lot of Asian dishes and I do a lot of Indian cooking, and I like a nice spicy dish, so a medium cayenne is perfect for what I need. Now, I am super excited about the ornamental value of this plant. I have some hanging baskets in my garden, and I'm looking forward to trying this as sort of a spiller effect in my hanging basket. So I will have this pepper planted in my hanging basket on a shepherd's hook, and I'm looking forward to seeing it just sort of droop out of the basket. They kind of hang off the plant like stalactites from a cave or like icicles. They're super beautiful. I'm definitely looking forward to this one for both the ornamental value and to put it in my cooking.
For this next crop, I have a fun little riddle that I made up. I want to see if you guys can guess it. I'm not what I seem, despite my name. Many people think I grow on trees, but that's not my game. I'm hidden in the soil where I like to stay. A legume in disguise. Can you guess what I am today? If you guessed peanuts, congratulations, you are really good at riddles. Peanuts are something that I look forward to growing in my garden every single year because one, they're just really cool to grow. These are some that I grew in my garden this year. They've been curing and now they're ready to be roasted. They're kind of like a plant it and forget it type of plant. And like we learned in the riddle, peanuts are actually legumes. They're not nuts at all. And as legumes, they are able to fix nitrogen and improve the health of your soil. So you get an edible crop and a cover crop all in one. And you guys know that I just love 2-for-1 crops like that. My favorite variety to grow is called Fastigiata pinstriped. And I simply like to grow it because it is just beautiful. It's a stunning variety. It's got these deep purple and cream stripes on it. And they're also very delicious. They make really great peanut butter. I was able to make some homegrown peanut butter and it was just chef's kiss. So an all around great variety, but there are dozens of different peanut varieties out there. Here in North Carolina, I am usually sowing these in the ground. So I'm direct sowing after our last frost, which is usually in April. And then I'm harvesting right before our first frost in like late November, early December. So peanuts really do appreciate warm weather and a long growing season, which is why they do so well here in the South. And you might be sitting at home saying, Meg, I live in a colder climate. I can't grow these here. And I will tell you, my friend, you are wrong. You can grow them. It's just gonna take a little more effort and a little more research on your part, but it can be done. There are a couple of varieties that are more cold tolerant and they have a shorter days to maturity, so they don't require as long of a growing season. The first variety is called Northern Hardy Valencia, and the second one is called Tennessee Valencia. So the Valencia peanut is typically a little more tolerant to colder weather. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna start them indoors well before your last frost. So you're gonna be starting them like with your tomatoes and your peppers about 5 to 6 weeks before that last frost. And then you'll plant them out. So that just kind of gives them a head start for everyone in a cold climate. So if you live in a cold climate and you are up for a challenge this year, you should grow peanuts. If you live in a warm climate and peanuts just kind of grow like wild here without much effort, you're gonna wanna grow peanuts this year.
Every single year you grow this crop, and every single year you are stoked to get this crop. But for me, I need to find a different angle to attack it from every single season. Of course, I'm talking about the most quintessential garden crop, the tomato. So again, there's so many different varieties that come out every year, and then there's your tried and true classics like a Cherokee Purple or even a Cherokee Carbon. But this year, I'm focusing on the category of sandwich slicer tomatoes. I've personally declared that 2025 for me is the year of the sandwich. I'm gonna be eating way more sandwiches in my life because there was a time when I subsisted off of sandwiches and I was probably the fittest I've ever been in my life, and I need to lean out a little bit. So I'm going back to my sandwich game with 2 different varieties that I'm personally excited about. Beefy Purple, it is a new one this year. I'm stoked about it. Why? Because it has this kind of like smoky flavor, like a little bit of a richness to it, a little umami. I want that in my sandwich, and I want that in my mouth, to be honest with you. So it's got a good color, it's got a good size, 12 to 14 ounce fruits. I'm very, very excited about this one. This one I thought I wouldn't go back to. I had a kick of growing oddly colored tomatoes, like, you know, sort of an atomic grape tomato or a deep purple or even a yellow. But this one, Pork Chop, is a true yellow. A lot of yellow tomatoes are actually orange. This is a true yellow, and it has a nice citrusy flavor to it, good size on the fruit. So if you wanted some, perhaps a little bit more acidity in your tomato, back off on that smokiness, add some acidity, then maybe try the Pork Chop out. But no matter what you do, get excited about growing this year. I need to get hyped about my garden to start that planning phase of the garden early in the season. If you want to get even more hyped, we released 35 new varieties this year on a live stream you can check out right here. Good luck in the garden this year, my friends, and keep on growing.